finally here. I am so sorry. I did some updates on my computer, and somehow it took 3 hours. I can't believe it happened, but we're all live. I got a great panel today, and we're going to be talking House of X number 5, all the implications. I have a great panel for you today. Doc, what's going on, buddy? Uh-oh, he's muted. Pele, are you there?
He's talking. Yeah, he's talking to somebody about getting new siding for his home. Yeah, I'm here. I'm not seeing the stream on YouTube.
Hopefully it's up and going.
It's going.
Is everybody? Okay, yeah, we're good. All right, Ash, what's going on, buddy?
I guess I'm just.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to be here. It's a pleasure to see all you guys.
All right, and our special guest, Chase from Gateway into Comics. How's it going, my friend?
Man, it's going great. I've had a really stressful morning because my ex-girlfriend keeps on texting me, and it's really annoying. But I'm here, and I'm glad all that's over.
Hopefully you've got your phone on Do Not Disturb. We got bigger things. Well, maybe not to you, but to all of us, it's bigger, you know. House of X number 5. Let's talk some comics. Let's get your mind off the bad things and talk about this wonderful goodness Jonathan Hickman brought us this week. Are we ready?
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's talk. We're going to do this in order. All right. All right, here's the big quote that opens up the book. Chase, what was your general feelings about the comic this week?
Oh, my gosh. This comic hit home for me. I freaking loved it. The first page was incredible because it really sums up Magneto's character in a nutshell. And I think Hickman did an incredible job of capturing that in his words to, his daughter. It was awesome. Really good.
All right, Ash, what are your thoughts, buddy?
This has been man, I have so many I have so many conflicting thoughts about this issue. I loved it. I think Hickman's writing is astounding, and I don't know why people didn't turn me on to Hickman before when I got back into comics. And I'm very much sold and interested to see what he's doing, and I'm in. But at the same time, I can't. That's nagging feeling in the back of my head that this can't be the X-Men. Something's wrong. There's all this things that are wrong.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll get into the details on that one. Bailey, how are you feeling about this issue?
I got more questions. And I don't feel that. I don't feel that what we're reading there's some sleight of hand going on in the background, and what we're seeing isn't what what's being shown to us is not exactly the truth, and I think that that's going to unfold later on.
I couldn't agree with you more.
So we're kind of getting like somebody's pulling the wool over our eyes. It's like what I was talking about several issues ago. You've got what I believe is a circumstance where you get the unreliable narrator to a point. What we're being shown is a very what's the best way to put this? What we're being shown is not exactly what's going on. But that's all going to come out later on when we finally get to see the whole picture. It's kind of like you got a puzzle and you're seeing like this portion of the puzzle, and there's a couple of pieces missing this portion, but the whole picture, once it's revealed like that, you're gonna oh my God, and you slap your forehead kind of situation.
I couldn't agree more. Doc, what are your feelings, buddy?
Oh, I'm still pretty certain that we're seeing Moira's 10th lifetime, and we are about to see the 11th when this is done.
All right.
You guys want to? That's partly. I think that I'm pretty sure that the different colors like that are the different lifetimes, and when we get through with House of X and Powers of X, you'll be able to go through and read all the gold panels, all the blue panels, all the red panels. You'll be able to go through, and that'll actually be a cohesive story for each one of them, to a degree.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys, you want to get into the details of the story and start chopping this bad boy down?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this one thing with this title, though, or not title, but the opening kind of quote that you had, it strikes me, though, the real difference between them and us is not what the obvious might be, which my first thought was them, humans, us, mutants. Are you going to talk about that, Wes? Is that part of your plan?
Oh, I'm sure we're going to get to it. We got a lot of steps in this one. Also, if you're in the chats and you want to talk about the comic or you want to make a point that you think we're missing, please, this is an interactive conversation. We want to hear your points, and I'll have them up on the screen so everyone can hear what you have to say as well. All right, let's hit the first one. Show. There we go. Let's talk about the significance of the 5 in Mutant Resurrection. Doc, we're going to start with you on this one because I know you're one of our X-Men historians. Hickman is really taking some rather lame or less thought of characters and really making them extremely important, elevating their powers and everything. What did you think about Hickman's mutant cloning apparatus and the 5's part in it?
I mean, hey, it's a cool concept. I hate cloning. I'll tell you that right now. I mean, just to start with, I hate clones. They bore me. They eliminate stakes. But the idea of their process, it's really cool. I like how he did it. I mean, it finally gave gold balls a function. Because literally just shooting bouncy gold balls is kind of weird. Okay, it's great to see somebody do something with Tempest, because Ava Bell was literally like the only interesting character that Bendis created during his all new X-Men or whatever the hell it was called run. It was the only original character that I actually liked. And so actually finding a function for her, and because everybody since then, for like the 3 years he's been gone or 2 years he's been gone off X-Men, nobody did anything with her. So finding a use for her is kind of cool. I mean, at least Salad Man or whoever it was stuck gold balls in Miles Morales' comic for a while. But no, I like the mechanism. I like the process. It was a cool idea. I just hate clones. So at the end of the day, I'm still going to hate clones.
Well, I think that's just a mechanism being used to
yes, but
the beginning of this.
Yes, but the outcome is still no stakes. When you can clone and copy people. Now, the one thing.
Yeah, but this is just the setup, though, as I'm talking about. We're not going to have clones going forward as far as in the X-Men series.
Well, we haven't seen that yet.
I'm pretty certain. I
hope so, but we're not certain yet. Now, the one thing that really intrigued me is it did give me some confirmation on, since it basically creates a lifeless husk with no mind or soul or whatever it is.
It's an empty vessel, yeah.
Yeah, it's an empty vessel. There's two things there. There's two little hints that, first of all, it's Cerebro. Cerebro has been destroyed since about 2000.
Yeah.
99, 2000, when it became sentient. And they killed it. It's literally never shown up since. It's, Whedon stole the idea and then reapplied it to the Danger Room for the character of Danger. But Cerebro has been gone for 20 years. Cerebra has been the one that exists, and it's supposed to be a lot stronger, but this is Cerebro. And in that first issue, like I remember, like the first stream we had, it really kind of struck me. It was like kind of just tickling the back of my brain, and I realized, no, I think that this is the sentient Cerebro. And
Cerebro is actually next.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then, when it comes to just the 5,
Mhm.
the only one that look, I hated when everybody when that whole they did the Astonishing X-Men run that brought back Proteus, and I've literally just kind of tuned it out from my memory at this point. I literally forgot until somebody reminded me yesterday. I think it might have been Dominic Powell. He reminded me on Twitter because I was pretty certain that Proteus had still been dead since about his 10th appearance, like basically the late 70s, early 80s, and bringing him back because he's a walking, Deus ex machina. He's just he's too powerful and he's too godlike.
Powers are too broad.
Yes, and because he's in control of them. It's the reason why nobody will ever let Franklin, Marvel won't ever let Franklin be a teenager or an adult. They will always continue to magically de-age him back to being a child. He'll be a teen for a couple of issues or one story arc and get powers, and then they will blink him back to toddler.
Eventually, well, it's like what Hickman was leading to as far as Franklin is concerned. And I think this will also impact X-Men going forward with Hickman, since he seems so enamored with this idea, is that Franklin is the next iteration of Eternity, and and also after that he will be the new, the new Galactus for the new universe, and I think that we'll see the new universe quicker than we realize. When the universe is destroyed, reborn, then Franklin will become the new Galactus with Galactus, the previous Galactus. But anyway, and that's going to happen, I think, at the end of some clues that I've seen kind of chipped in from what I've seen from Hickman's Fantastic Four. Because remember, I was talking about, you read the Hickman books all the way through and you kind of get an idea of where he's going with his storyline.
Yeah.
Is that when the next reboot of the Marvel Universe will be the rebirth of the next universe. And we'll see a lot of things leading up to that. We're already seeing those things come to fruition. And then we'll see Franklin's true purpose at that point. But anyway, that's what I'm sorry to interject on that. It's just that Franklin, we'll see that Franklin, and they'll roll that in with the mutants, with the Avengers and everybody like that. That Franklin's the central character that's going to be involved with the next reboot of the Marvel Universe, I believe. But
certainly he's always been hinted at that, but I don't think that they're going.
We got to talk about the 5. We're already an hour and a half late, guys.
Yeah.
All right. Chase, what are your thoughts about the 5, buddy?
Were you talking to me?
Yeah.
I think it's cool. I really do. This hits kind of a personal note for me in a sense, and I know that may sound weird, but it's a great concept, and I feel like Hickman has probably been reading some Ray Kurzweil, who's one of my favorite authors, and he's the head of robotics at Google, and he believes that all of these things are going to begin to occur in 10 to 15 years from now, that we're going to be able to download people's consciousness, and of course not with mutant powers and stuff, but I think that this is a great move on his part. I really do. It's fantastic. Now, because I don't have a dislike for the whole cloning thing. I think it's a little overdone in the X-Men, but I feel like he'll probably get away from it in the main title, and that this is a prelude to the main storyline, and that I think he's making a nod to all of the writers in X-Men that have done it in the past, to be honest with you. And I think that's a good note. Now, if he continues with it, I think it's going to change the X-Men in a negative way in the future, to be honest with you. So I see both of y'all's perspectives on that. And, hopefully this is just a prelude,
Mm-hmm. So, Ash, what are your thoughts on the 5? And then I'm going to give like a wild theory, and then we'll move on.
I don't have a lot of thoughts on the 5. They involve a lot of characters that I'm not familiar with, other than like Proteus, which we talked about already. But it's interesting to see that he's taken even some of the unknowns and the not really well liked, the characters we used to mock, like Gold Balls, and treated them seriously, gave them a purpose, made them have a place in the overall narrative. And part of me thinks that this is all just, him kind of going through X-Men history when it comes to writers and finding everything that they kind of contributed and somehow making sure that it's included so that their stamp, I guess, is intact, because he's about to just stir it all up and go a totally different route and everything. And it's like, here you go. We recognize you and we're moving forward. But when it comes to actual narrative plot points and what's involved, I don't have a lot of thoughts on this one. So I'm eager to hear what your theories are.
All right. So I have a slight theory that what we're seeing is basically the information that's passed from Moira X in the second issue of House of X. Like, this story isn't moving on from there. He's actually seeing what happened in the past. So he's seeing the big 3 threats that were going to destroy mutants. 1 is going to be the humans and machines and eventually end up in Nimrod. 2 is going to be assimilation of the phalanx at 1,000 years from now. And the 3rd one is going to be the mutants themselves. If they go too far, they do this cloning stuff and they get too radicalized that they're actually going to destroy the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Nice.
That's fantastic.
Actually, I love
Yeah,
that.
this is nothing has changed since the first panel of the first issue of House of X. We're still seeing what he's transferred, which he's
Yes,
transferring.
I think we're seeing
That's
what
what,
he's learning from Moira and the things that he has to do better.
Yeah, that's what my son Daniel was telling me, that he's like, this is, he says, nothing is with the actual storyline of what, in the present day world of X-Men, they're still sitting on the bench. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, they're still sitting on the bench. This is we're seeing the download in progress.
Yes, that's the way I'm kind of interpreting it.
Oh, and I was like, yeah, I think you're right. So yeah,
he's doing it really tricky because it makes it seem like it was moving along with timeline 10, and then we were seeing the events of timeline 9 merge up with it. But there's specifically one lifetime where it says Charles becomes radicalized. Previous to that is the one where Moira becomes radicalized and works, I believe, with Apocalypse. I think we might actually be seeing those 2 timelines, or maybe the 6th lifetime.
Right. I think you're right. No, I think you're right.
All right, everyone likes the theory.
I mean, it just seems like that's the direction that this is going. It's really, really slick, I have to say.
He's done a lot
all
of
these
sleight of hand.
There's a lot of these timelines that she's starting the storyline with him. Those timelines start with her contact with Charles on that bench, and it's like, and she's showing him, well, this is what we did at this point in the timeline, and this is what happened after this, and we can, you can choose something else, like choose your own adventure from this point in the timeline when we're on the bench.
Yeah, nothing good can come from this mindset. Everyone's acting like Magneto. We were talking about this last night on Twitter, and you got to have some good guys. We can't continue like this forever. And that theory, that it's all going to end in a huge bang and they're going to ruin everything and destroy it because of their radicalization. Yeah, I'm with you, man. That's legit.
All right, so let's get into some of the ways I think this is going to go wrong, and let's go talk about, is Charles using Cerebro or is Cerebro using him? Because I think it's mostly Cerebro using Charles at this point. Ash, what do you think about Cerebro and the revelations that Charles is using it not only to locate mutants everywhere in the world, but he's also downloading their minds and then re-uploading them into new husks to make new versions?
Well, I hadn't really given a lot of credence to the artificial intelligence Cerebro and controlling Xavier, mostly I think because that was a lot of storyline that happened during my hiatus and I wasn't paying attention to X-Men. My mind's been delving is that this isn't Charles Xavier. And I believe that what we're seeing is tied more into the Sinister story parts that we got just revealed in a previous issue. So I definitely think there's strong possibilities that these theories, as you guys, mention them and explain them, and I go, oh, yeah, I hadn't thought of that. It seems like there's some very strong reasons to consider that, and I'm really curious to hear what the rest of the panel thinks on it. But as of right now, I'm still leaning towards either that just being a red herring, or it's just not really the case, and that Charles is something to do with Sinister, and this is the Charles we're seeing is not the Charles we believe him to be.
All right, so Doc, I want to give you another theory. So we know that Cerebro has another purpose now, and it's to download and upload minds. Yep. Now, there's 2 members that were resurrected that are the heroes of Krakoa that I don't think would have gone along with this. I don't think Nightcrawler would have been resurrected and had his soul put back into him for religious reasons. And I don't think Wolverine would have gone back with it because he's been living for so long. He would have been like, leave me dead. Yes. Please. So I think when he's downloading their minds, he's also changing their minds, and he's making them more susceptible to the radicalization that's happened on the island. And he's making, I don't want to use the word docile, but he's changing them a bit so they'll be more accepting of his ideas.
Yeah, I don't think you're too far off on that. I don't think he's doing it. I think that, look, I mean, Cerebro, they have to be storing the brain data digitally. I mean, so Cerebro is an artificial intelligence. It just makes minor adjustments. I think it's Cerebro that's making the changes.
But you also think that maybe, is it Cassandra Nova?
Well, I think Cassie actually took over Xavier's body.
Whoa.
And that this is a timeline where Cassie took over, but they never found out. Because remember, during Morrison's run, she replaced Xavier for a little while. She's the one that announced, that made him out himself to the world about being a mutant, and the fact that the school was a mutant school, and then he took off on a Shi'ar ship with Lilandra, and then he drove her insane, and and then she tried to assassinate him later. But yeah, so she replaced Xavier once. She could have done it. She could have been successful in this timeline. And because of Cerebro, okay. Because remember, back in the late 90s, there was the sentient Cerebro. It had the power to actually create mutants using its own data. It made but it kind of glitched them up. And was mixing and matching personality and physical form and power sets into different bodies. So let's say that Cerebro actually doesn't go crazy because Xavier doesn't, because it was kind of like this. It was basically the exact same plot that Whedon used in his Danger arc, where Xavier found out that it was sentient and then suppressed it and kept it a slave, and so it was actually kind of worse when he did it to Danger because he had already done this once. But this time in this say in this reality, he actually lets Cerebro be free, and they kind of merge together. Except so it starts actually controlling Xavier a little bit, and it allows him to protect himself from being, that body to protect itself later when Cassie takes over his body. And Cerebro and Cassie realize that they have similar goals. And so they just kind of, Charles is gone, but his body is there. It's Charles' body with Cassie's mind and soul being run and augmented by Cerebro, by the sentient Cerebro. And I think that that's why you end up with kind of an evil Xavier. Not evil, but definitely shady as all hell.
Oh,
Xavier. Yeah. But yeah. So I think that that's what the situation is. Now, I do think that Cerebro is using him. Or Cassie or whoever. Because one of the things Cerebro wanted to do was make more mutants. It wanted to grow the mutant population. It wanted to, its primary job was to find more mutants. So if it realizes it can make them too, it's fulfilling its primary function, which is finding more.
Chase, you got any thoughts on all this?
Oh yeah. I feel like a little bit of back thoughts about how I feel about Xavier. He's always done some really messed up stuff. What was it? He actually, you remember, he knew that the danger room became sentient. He put everyone in danger. He didn't even care, seem to care. He didn't even tell them. And it was rampaging. He was going to kill everyone. He's done a lot of crazy stuff. And so, don't get me wrong, I don't necessarily see him as a pure villain, but I feel like that these 9 timelines that, we haven't really seen everything that's happened yet in them. I think that him being able to look at Moira and see inside of her mind and all of these occurrences, I think that it's changed him in a dark way, and that he has to relearn how to not be a horrible person at this point. That's what I think. I know that that's a simplistic conclusion that Hickman would come to, but I feel like that's what it feels like to me on an intuitive level.
To learn to not go with his instincts. Like, when you do this, it's gonna go bad.
Yeah, I feel like he's just has a history of pulling the wool over people's eyes. Creating that whole entire list of everyone's weaknesses, everyone in the whole Marvel universe. And then, of course, becoming Onslaught, killing everyone, Fantastic Four, Xavier's kind of a monster. And now he's even more of a monster, That's just my opinion.
All right, Ash, did you weigh in on Cerebro?
Yeah, I'd say it a little bit.
That's right.
I'm not sure I like the idea that Xavier's a monster. I think people have mishandled his character. And so I know I've seen that argument and people talking about that, and there's truth to it, obviously, because it's Marvel canon stuff, but it's just like, it kind of goes back to the time when they made Scott Summers and not Nazi, but what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, that's not true to who he is. I really feel like Xavier I almost feel like Hickman's winking at me in certain scenes, where someone will say something really sinister, and then all of a sudden it's like Xavier's got a little cock smile, and it's just like, this can't be legit. This can't be like, nope, this is the true X-Men. This is what we're in store. I'm like, I can't believe that. There's got to be more behind the curtain.
All right, Doc. We got a viewer asking, has Xavier been in a villain in alternate time stories before? Are there a couple you want to point out where people should go check out? They want to see it?
Well, during the new Excalibur run, the one with Dazzler when she was running around with pink hair for some reason, there was an alternate universe villainous Xavier that had been corrupted by the Shadow King and it was the black X-Men, because they literally just wore like all black biker gear. It kind of looked like the movie X-Men, but it was the original 5 team together, and they were all kind of evil. Let's see. I think there was an evil one in Exiles. but I just highly recommend the entire Exiles run until the last 9 issues. When Claremont came on, and as much as I love Claremont, he turned it into the Psylocke show and booted out Blink, and Blink was kind of the best part of that book. So, yeah, there's been a couple. Your best bet's going to probably be Exiles and New Excalibur for Evil Xaviers.
All right, Paley, do you have any thoughts on Cerebro before we move to the next topic?
Yeah, I'm pretty. I'm on board with the Cerebro controlling whoever that is behind the helmet right now. So I think that who's behind the helmet could be a surprise. So that perhaps Xavier tried to stop this at some point, and Xavier isn't around. Somebody else is filled in for quote Xavier. So, but that I think that could be a curveball. But yeah, I think that that's kind of where. Yeah, I think that's kind of where he's leading right now. That's different though in different timelines, I think. So, it could be a different person at different points, but it all leads to the same place. So, the whole ultimate thing here is, we have to make sure that Cerebro does not take over.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the one unifying point there is we got to keep Cerebro from taking over, because that's the one place where everything goes caca and slides off the road.
All right, so we're gonna move on to Storm's new role in the Heroes of Krakoa when they were reintroduced. It was very radical. It was cult-like. They had a whole ceremony where they were introduced naked and asked questions. It was creepy, and there was a lot of backlash, to my review on my channel where people were like, there's nothing wrong with this. They're just proud. It's the first time they've ever had a unified front. Chase, did you see similar things?
Oh yeah, dude. People told me that I'm tripping, that I've lost my mind, that I'm wrong. I mean, just flat out told me, look, you're absolutely incorrect about your review, and there's nothing wrong here, nothing to see here. Everybody look away. These people are waving their fists in their air and basically saying that they're supremacists, and someone made an interesting point last night when we were all talking about this on Twitter, and they were like, they said, replace the word mutant with white. And then that's exactly, I mean, seriously, in that, then it becomes white power. It's creepy and cult-like, it's weird.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think people there's not a lot of politics, I think, in this book, but there certainly is some that this is an extreme nationalistic view of mutant. And, they've all gone into one place, and they're building basically walls up where humans aren't allowed in. And, it's kind of a similar, some beats of what's going on today. You could even look at, the most similar thing in today's world is to what they're building right there is in the nation of Israel, which is pretty controversial. But I don't think people are realizing exactly what they're signing up for or what they're supporting. Ash, is that the thoughts that you're getting?
Yeah, I agree with you that I don't think that Hickman's telling a political story in the sense that it's, tying in with topical stuff today. But I definitely think he's interjecting political concepts and just things that are true, just universal truths, if you will. I think what my takeaway is very much what Chase said, that, there's this cult-like, I call it like a fascist. In my review, I talked about the X-Men are establishing a fascist ethno-state, and no one seems to care. It's because it's cool. It's because we like the X-Men and we're on their side that this is all fine. But if we weren't, as Chase so eloquently put, if you just replace the word mutant with white, all of a sudden it becomes shocking and horrific. And I think what Hickman's doing, and I'm kind of crossing my fingers on this, because I'm thinking this is going to be like a Game of Thrones moment where we realize our heroes are actually the villains, and then the people, certain sects of people, I would say, will get extremely furious when they find out that this characters that they've been rooting for all this time are actually really bad. And when the author points it out how bad they are, they won't be able to accept it, because moments like this, unlike people like Chase who can say, no, this is wrong, something's upsetting here, this is not how good people behave, and then if the author takes it down its rightful storyline, and you say, yep, you were right to believe that, because look, these were bad people all along, and then you get that moment of people like, no, and then pissed off and outraged, and it's I don't know, that's speculation for the future, but I definitely am crossing my fingers that he's going to have some sort of big reveal and say, look, you were right to not trust this situation. These characters are either evil clones, or they're being mind controlled by AI Cerebro, whatever. There's some sort of plot mechanic at work here that are making the X-Men not quite the recognizable X-Men that you'd expect, and the ship will be steered eventually, but this is all to serve, the greater plot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was thinking more like reading this. I was thinking, yeah, this makes it, the way I was thinking, it was political, but I never even considered the whole thing with the wall and what's happening in real life. I was thinking more, since I'm conservative, I was thinking more from the other side. So I was thinking, yeah, this is like the hive mind that we're seeing with the social justice crew, and they're building barriers within society, and how they're keeping the unwashed masses out of academia and stuff like that. So I was thinking of a completely different perspective on this. So it just depends on where you're looking from, what direction you're looking at is the perspective as far as who's the bad guy, who's the good guy. So it was kind of like I was saying, I was thinking at it from that perspective, and I would imagine that somebody from the far left would think of it from from the direction of like Trump and the wall, and and more along geopolitical lines. So instead of socio-political, but
Mm-hmm.
very, very, very interesting. It's very well crafted. I love that you can actually look at you can read a story like this and see so many different perspectives in it. That's what makes this story so good.
Yes,
because
thank you.
There's no, this is the way it is. This is what this is like. Spell it out for you. Chew your food for you, and say, okay, and now we're going to spoon feed you this bit of information, and you're going to believe it this way, a la Bendis, King, these people. If you think about it this way, you're wrong.
Yes,
those type of writers, and that is so just gripes my ass lately.
I mean, it could turn. I was going to say, it could turn out that we're all wrong.
We're all wrong from the author's perspective. But Hickman will be one of the first people to tell you that's not how you perceive it, is how it is, because you are the one reading the story.
Yes. Mm-hmm. The best storytellers, they take an idea, a notion, even if it's controversial, if it's something that people are arguing and enraged about in modern society, and they give you just people discussing it, and they allow you to make up your own mind about what's occurring. That is good storytelling, not trying to force a notion or an idea or an agenda. Right. Yeah, very well said, dude. I agree.
What we're seeing right now, as far as with the Bendises and the Kings and these knob jockeys out there that are trying to say, hey, this is what's going on here. You guys are wrong. I'm going to explain to you how you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to explain to you how you're the villain. And I'm going to tear down your cultural icons. And I'm going to make you believe things the way that I want you to believe. And that's stupid. It's childish. It's such bad writing. It's not just ideologically bad. It's bad writing, and it's bad storytelling. And then when you get somebody like Hickman, or you get some at Claremont. You get these great storytellers that can fashion a story that will appeal to everyone essentially, and they'll be able to see part of themselves and part of their identity, part of their social, position or whatever, what have you. They'll be able to see themselves in that story, and they'll be able, it'll resonate with them.
Mm-hmm.
And it will, and it elevates the discourse. It elevates the conversation and the level of conversation and the quality of everyone's association with each other. And that's what we need. That's what comics are about. Comics are they're an art form, but they're also the story with the art and the combination of the two to help elevate discourse and to help elevate conversation. And like I said, there's some people that do that well. There's some people that don't do that well. And what we're seeing right now with Hickman, I believe, is the former. We're seeing somebody doing this at the top of their craft, and I'm just enjoying the hell out of this. That you can turn on the blinders and you can see somebody, or you can turn off the blinders and you can see something from somebody else's point of view. And maybe this could help people actually, in the comics community, if certain people will actually allow it, to see other points of view and to be able to have a conversation about it. And right. I think that could be very special if that could happen.
All right, Doc, I want to talk to you about something. I got accused of being a human sympathizer.
Oh,
because of my review. It was troubling. I am not a human sympathizer. I am human proud. Just because things look a little cultish and I'm not exactly down with the plan right now doesn't mean that I'm not still an X-Men at heart. That Nightcrawler is not still my guy. What did you think about all the machinations going on the island of Krakoa when the heroes of Krakoa are resurrected and presented to the?
I thought it was creepy as hell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like the fact that it was. I mean, they are looking at it. I mean, they're acting like it's like a religious devotion,
Right?
And that bugs me.
Does it kind of remind you of the certain individuals on the certain political spectrum who are trying to teach everybody a certain way?
I mean, you're not entirely wrong.
That's what I was feeling when I read it, and I was like, "Ooh, Hickman's getting to dangerous territory there."
Yeah, but I don't know if that's necessarily. I mean, what he's aiming at. I think he's aiming at.
I think he's trying to make readers uncomfortable.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think that he's hitting the mark there.
That's kind of what I was talking about before. Yeah.
If he's trying to make the readers uncomfortable and not really, and kind of realize that these X-Men aren't good.
Yeah.
They're not really X-Men. They're more just mutant nation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're mutant. Yeah, they're mutant supremacists.
Yeah, and look, I'm sorry. This is. I said it after the first issue, and while I still really enjoy this series, this is not Xavier's dream. This is Magneto's.
Yes,
right,
and it's still Magneto's dream.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're seeing it. We're seeing an iteration. We're seeing an iteration where Magneto's dream came true.
Well, we're seeing it
really, but we'll hit that at the
end. Yeah.
Well, we're seeing an iteration where we've seen in the past what happens when Magneto comes and takes and follows Charles's dream. We've seen that before. We've never seen Chuck decide to follow Magneto's. And that is an interesting idea. I mean, they sort of did that with Onslaught, but different. But this is the first time we've ever gotten to see what happens if Xavier decides to follow Magneto's dream. And I don't think we're going to get that for long. I don't think that that's going to continue on into the other series.
No.
But
it can't, because this is the past.
Here's the thing.
This is a former world.
Hold on. there's a thing here. Well, again, we're not certain of that.
I'm pretty certain.
We're pretty certain, but we're not. But there's no guarantee. But the one thing that I realized is there's no Xavier in any of the Dawn of X promo material. He's not there.
Good point.
So, this may be that lifetime, and Xavier maybe we find out that he's dead. I don't know, but this is I don't like that creepy kind of cult-ish the way that they reacted to the resurrections. That's just weird.
It is very unsettling. Very
Yes.
unsettling. Yeah.
So
Go ahead. Yeah, no, that was it. I was just going to talk about my emotions and how unsettling is a good word. I'm not going to elaborate.
The touching on the uncomfortableness. I think though that there's a little bit of room to kind of disagree. Not disagree. You're right. It is making uncomfortable. I don't think it's making everyone uncomfortable. I think everyone that's done reviews, probably Wes might be able to confirm, you yourself, I myself for sure, have had people argue with me, that no, this is fine. What are you talking about? Like, this is just your own, racial inadequacies or, my own, they project it back onto me that what I'm seeing is because of some flaw in my character, and that these X-Men are perfectly normal and right. And I can see other people not seeing the way we've just discussed, and that they look at these X-Men and go, oh no, this is totally great. This is how it should be, which is why I kind of talked about a little bit earlier that I'm hoping this happens, that Hickman pulls the rug out and goes, no, this is wrong. And now, where before I just sort of let the pot stew and you just take it in and make your own interpretations. Now it comes time I have to reveal that Dani is the Dragon Queen. It's a similar type thing, and people are going to be and if I'm right, people are going to be like, what? God, what? Or this could be the X-Men. And what I mentioned at the very top of the video, where I have mixed views, is because I look at the upcoming promotional material and I think of, this is the X-Men that are going to become teams like the Marauders, and they have Apocalypse in their ranks, and they've got Black Tom Cassidy and the Black Queen, and there's something that I'm hoping Hickman really addresses with this new X book here in the House and Powers of X, that not only are the X-Men acting weird, every single one of their rogues gallery has now joined them, and so they have just embraced some of the most vile, evil, murdering bastards, if you will, of the X universe, and it's been like, you're one of us. It's okay that you tried to destroy the world because you're a mutant. And you got to answer that. You can't be heroes and embrace evil. You just can't.
That's true.
Good. All right, I think we've done that one. We're like I said, we are going to get to the big last reveal, because the first two big reveals are that they're cloning and that Cerebro has a new purpose and that he can download and upload minds. Now let's talk about the resurrection reference material. I have complained a couple times that sometimes these are way too dense and it felt like work going through it, but I love reading this. I couldn't believe the subtext that was available in it. The implications that were in those 3 pages were just enormous to me. Chase, what did you think about these reference materials?
So I have a very different perspective than everyone that I know. Almost, I'm in a kind of a small community of folks that we're life extensionists, and so this kind of thing really appeals to me. And a lot of folks actually really disagree. But like I was saying, Ray Kurzweil is one of my favorite guys to follow. He's into robotics, but you know, as far as this whole resurrection process goes, it sounds very similar to something that I actually have set up for myself. It's going to sound strange, but I've archived my DNA. It's on file at a medical facility. I've taken a full record of my timeline, written out my life story and all of my emotional occurrences that have made me who I am, keeping those on file with that. And I actually have a cryonics contract. If my body was to die, then it would be immediately rushed via helicopter to Michigan in the hopes that one day technology could restore me. And that may sound crazy, but man, that's why I love this book so much, because this is so up my alleyway. And it's strange sci-fi stuff that I'm talking here, but technology's getting really crazy. So I don't know. Really cool, man. I like it.
All right, so Ash, what did you think about them? Were they too dense? Did they have a lot of interesting things for you to look at? And what were you chewing on the reference material themselves?
They are dense, but I really appreciate them. My only complaints about what I call people have been calling them the white pages, and I think that's a good label. My only complaint about these is that for some issues, they've artificially inflated the page count and then the pricing and stuff, but that's not what we're here to talk about. As far as just pure media consumption, I think it adds a lot to the book. When I was reading this book, and I forgot to mention this in my own review, like this was the first book of the whole series that I really sat down and was just, and not consciously. I didn't do this, force myself to do it, where I sat down and just found myself pausing on each panel and taking it in. And I don't know why. I can't put my finger on why. I don't think this isn't even my favorite issue, but for some reason it just was really, I was engrossed on every single thing. And then you get to the white pages and it feels like a natural interlude, like where Hickman almost even knows, okay, stop, like break from the story. Let me feed you some information that's related, but not exactly the narrative now. So you can take your time and digest in the, what you're reading. Then you read all this stuff and then you come back into the story and you're ready to go. And he's interjecting these in the right spot. And when it comes to these particular resurrection pages, what really struck me were the notes. There are sections where they're just bold and it says note, da 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 da. The regular text is kind of just background information, like how does the resurrection work, and it's nice and it helps give you some details. But I believe the meat of these pages are in these notes where Hickman is alluding to clues of different things that are possible plot points or maybe hints at some of the things that you've seen. For example, he says things like, note, there has been no experimentation regarding that what happens when you combine a mutant mind with a husk that's not their own. And that, when I read that, my mind was already going with the Sinister thing. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a second. There's that clue in the Sinister, those 10 diamond points or whatever. The last clue talks about Sinister being like a step ahead of Charles. I forget exactly how it's worded, but it made me think, what if Sinister somehow got a hold of Moira's story before Charles, and because of this was able to be one step ahead of Charles, and then taking that ahead of further, and this is wild speculation, I totally agree, but what if, for example, what we were seeing is a Charles Xavier husk with a Sinister mind inside it, and Sinister is running around being Charles and doing the Professor X thing, but it's not actually Professor X, it's Sinister's machinations. And that explains why there's cloning, and this right up his alley, that he just births X-Men. And I know there's not a whole lot of structural support to really elaborate on that, but my mind just immediately started going there. And that's just an example of how these notes made me start thinking about what I'm reading in different ways. and I think there's a lot to dive in there, and I'd be really curious to see what you guys when you dive into those, if you pull anything out like I did.
That's a fascinating perspective. That's freaking cool.
But he would need a telepath as strong as Charles to run Cerebro and upload his mind into Charles' husk, correct?
Potentially, but
we do know Charles always has a husk available because it's used for Proteus.
Yes, and we also know from the Powers of X storylines that Sinister worked on combining mutant DNAs to make those special, powerful, next gen mutants. So while you're correct, so how my line of thinking is
know about that unless because Moira had to give it to Charles telepathically. He would have to get a telepath to get it from Moira to him.
But if Sinister was the guy who created Mutantum to begin with, which is what the books have hinted at in that last story, then perhaps Sinister's been around a lot longer than we think. And like I said, if he puts himself into place, because he's got multiple clones of himself too, we've also seen that. If he puts himself into place at key points where he kind of knows things are going to occur and happen, and allows people to interact with him in ways that they don't even understand who they're interacting with. For instance, what if the person sitting on that bench isn't Charles Xavier when Moira goes to Charles to say, here's the plan, here's what we're going to do, and the whole time, and this is totally wild, I know it's way out there thinking, but she's not talking to Charles. She's giving the whole plan to Sinister, and he's like, cool, and no one knows. And again, it's wild out there. I don't actually totally expect that that's the case, but it's these clues make me think in those directions, because Hickman has proven already that he's willing to go that out there, that there's no limit to hey, I can really put twists on here, and it's causing me to look really crazy like this, because he's shown that his plots can go crazy, and he's not a limited thinker, he's a big thinker.
Well, just to interject here, when it comes to Sinister, remember, Sinister is one of the ones that actually shows up finally on Krakoa in this issue.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 4 people on that page that the coloring is off on, and all of them have some degree of psychic power except for one. Sinister has a degree of psychic power. Lady Mastermind, and Exodus.
Oh yeah. I'm looking at it right now. I did not notice this until you pointed it out.
All 3 of them are bolded in color. They're not in the shadows.
Oh wow!
And that may be a hint that something's coming from those 3, and especially when it comes to they may already be helping to control Xavier.
So cool.
One more thing, I noted this in my review, and I haven't heard anyone talk about this. In the white pages, one thing I noticed, and this could be really innocuous, it could mean nothing, but it's in the very beginning of this book where it says, "Do you want to know the real difference between them and us?" That page at the very bottom, it lists Xavier Alpha, and my speculation when I immediately read that, my mind was, people always tell me how Hickman doesn't do anything without a plan. Everything is thought out. So I'm like, well, wait a second. You don't label anything as an alpha unless there's a beta or an omega. If there's a singular thing, you don't call it it is. So why are you labeling Xavier as alpha if there's got to be others? There's, to have that delineator. Does that make sense?
Can we get back on the reference? Sure. I did want to talk to Doc about one thing. So one of the big plans that's spelled out is that Xavier and the mutants are going to resurrect the 16 million that died at Genosha. And they're trying to figure their work way around there.
Yeah. Doc,
what do you think about where my big question was, where do they find all the mines? Do you know where they find the mines?
Honestly, I haven't the slightest clue.
All right, I'm going to show it to you. Look at your screen. Boom, right there.
Huh.
you though look at New X-Men number 132 by Grant Morrison, I want to thank my viewer Marcus Lake because he's the one that did the research and told it to me. When they go and they find Polaris, and she's at Genosha, and she survived. She's clutching a black box, and it's revealed that before the Genosha happened, that Magneto magnetically recorded all the minds that were there.
Okay.
He magnetically recorded all the minds?
Basically like a record.
Yes, they're in the black box.
Oh, I like that.
Because I mean, it's like a CD, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he recorded basically the brain has folds, and in the actual positions of red blood cells within those folds and everything like that. He could get a pretty good read as far as a mental state or a mind state, physical mind state at that time.
Well, he can make a copy of it. He doesn't know what the hell any of it means.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he would just have a blind copy, like an analog copy, like an imprint, like a palm print.
Well, but Charles would be able to read it.
No. It would be more like if you took like a photo file, like a JPEG file, and then converted it to a .txt. There's going to be a shit ton of letters and numbers and symbols and everything in there.
My hesitation is all due to this idea of Magneto being able to use his powers to record the consciousness of people, and then
that's Grant Morrison's idea.
Okay, yeah,
I'm just saying it's cool that Hickman's using it to help resurrect the 16 million. Now it makes sense because they do have all the minds. They've been stored by Magneto in Grant Morrison's new X-Men run. Do you think that's cool, Doc?
I actually do. I forgot about that. I mean, I remember the issue, but I forgot about it until now because basically it was just kind of a little plot point to explain why Polaris is crazy. Mm-hmm. And why she needed to get brought back to the, back to the mansion to recuperate and then, all that fun stuff. It was a good explanation, but it was just kind of a MacGuffin that they're actually finding a use for now.
Mm-hmm. And I think what you were talking about before, many episodes ago, when Magneto went out and he caught the bullet that shot Kitty Pryde into space that was like hundreds of light years away, and he was able to find it, grab it, and pull it back. To me, the whole black box thing is like orders of magnitude higher level power than that.
Yeah, me too.
So that's like, oh my God, like what does he do? How, to me, that would be like, he was hooked up to the Beyonder or something like that and amplified to that level of power. But like I said, that's Grant Morrison though. So, he probably didn't think in those terms. But I think it's a really interesting theory there. I like that. I'm not saying I like it. I'm just saying that it seems to fit.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I was like, how is he going to get all these minds? They're dead. And it's like, oh, there's like this one little part in the story that it was kind of throwaway. And now he's found this enormous use for it that now he can resurrect 16 million people and he has all their minds. He just has to find their DNA, which we know Mr. Sinister has already done for him. He's cataloged them all.
Well, I thought they kind of already explained that in the book. And correct me if I'm wrong, if someone interpreted it better than I did, but they kind of explained where Cerebro, all this time we thought it was just a way to search for mutants, but it was also a cataloging program. So my understanding was that Cerebro, for the past decade or whatever, has just been nonstop even before the Genosha incident.
Well, he would have to. Here's what's interesting: having the physical map of everybody's brains. Magneto has the physical map. Cerebro has the contents of all the thoughts. So if you take all of Cerebro, you take all of the mapping, and then you take the DNA. Those three things you'd be able to combine to create the state of that person at the time that they died in that situation.
I guess
you'd have to have all three of them for the people to, one, not be crazy, to two, be actually physically seem like themselves. So it
I
seems
don't- I
like
just
all
thought it was
three would be
cool.
necessary.
It was a cool
Cool.
callback.
Like-
I love the way Hickman's like is lacing all these old things that were kind of throwaway into one real cohesive, cool story.
Oh,
He just goes out of his way to explain the whole resurrection process, and he specifically ties down to the DNA of Sinister's project and the mapping of, or the cataloging of Cerebro. There's not even a hint to the black box and like needing to map the brain. Or
That's what I'm saying, but it's there. If you want to challenge them on it, like they have it all stored.
I mean, it exists.
it exists, and I'm not saying that's stupid that it exists. I'm not saying that. I'm not sure that Hickman is actually relying on that for his narrative at all.
While I think about it, 2 points on this. Ash, the one thing you mentioned about the Xavier Alpha thing, yeah, I can understand what you mean, but if you look at the last page, it's a Magneto quote, and it says Magneto Omega. So it's meant to imply that Xavier is the beginning, Magneto is the end. They are opposites. They are on they are at the opposite sides of the spectrum.
Sure. Yeah, and you could very well be right. I wasn't trying to convince anyone that I've figured it out. It was more of wild speculation of just like my brain going everywhere.
Yeah. But the other thing is, though, the black box, assuming they end up using that, assuming that comes up and gets used, that could be the cataclysm that destroys the world and that Moira has to prevent, or one of them, because you might end up with, because that would actually go back to the nobody knows what happens if you put in the wrong body. The brain or the brain in the other husk in the
wrong husk.
Yeah. Just trying to keep track of those 16 million, or if they are bad copies, or if that's a bad, and you essentially release 16 million mutants that don't work right.
Right. Exactly.
Because they're all bad copies. That could basically destroy the world.
And maybe, some of the copies are bad, but in a good way, like Apocalypse, like.
Yeah, but I guess my point is.
What I'm saying is you'd end up with heroes that are now villains and villains that are now heroes, and that could explain what you're seeing on the future material for the different.
Distinctly possible. But the one other thing that I did notice on the opening or on the title page, and because I've started paying a little bit more attention to some of the matter on the pages, on the title page in the bottom right corner, it's just "Here They Come." I have no idea what in the hell that means at this point, but I think it probably is hinting at something, because it's not the issue title.
Oh, is that the one for the next one?
No, this is from House of X5. The one down. This issue was called Society, but in the bottom right hand corner, it's "Here _ they _ and then ellipses and then come _
Yeah, he's talking about the credits page.
Yeah, the opening credits title page.
Yeah, I see that now. I didn't even notice this before, and I feel stupid for not even paying attention to this.
Interesting.
The House of Xavier, Here They Come.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Now, what that's going to mean? Now, that could mean it could just be because in the next page, that's when they start getting introduced to the clone, reborn X-Men get, introduced to the island. Maybe that's what it was.
Maybe it's referenced to the end, the last page where all the rogues gallery comes and they open the gates.
It could be when all the villains start piling in. Yeah, because that's a lot of villains. I mean, you look at that page, and in addition to Apocalypse, you have Random, Wild, Style, is that what the hell's his name? The not Wolverine guy from.
Can we cover the dudes on Apocalypse on the arriving when we get to that point?
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Let's just want to say shout out to Comics Aficionado Jeremy. It's his birthday tomorrow. He could be with us today. He's got a big weekend. Thank you very much, buddy, and we'll see you next time. All right, let's move on to the next part. What is it? Uh-oh, I lost my spot. There we go. Let's talk about Krakoan sovereignty and mutant diplomacy. Pele, what did you think about this point? I thought it was the most boring part of the story, but clearly Xavier's okay with coercion, manipulation on Emma Frost's part to get the vote that they wanted for mutant sovereignty. Did you see any problems with this? Does this continue? Does this continue the what we've already talked about for you?
Oh yeah, it's the more of the downward slide. It's the the we'll get whatever we want at any price type of mentality, and I think it just shows how far they're willing to go as far as. And I just don't see that as, it's more of that. This is definitely not right. Something is seriously wrong here. This is not the Xavier I know. But it just kind of wow. You're like, what happens later on when they realize how they voted. It's when they finally wake up, if they wake up to the reality of what they've done. As far as what the humans have done. So
do we think they voted for this knowing what they did on Orcus and that they destroyed the mother mold?
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
I don't think so either.
Not at all. They either that memory has been wiped or they're being manipulated.
Or maybe communications are cut off.
Yeah, or they just haven't gotten information about it yet.
Mm-hmm.
I also think Orcus was probably a secret project, so it's not something that was just like public note. Everyone's like, "Hey, we all know about this." I think.
Yeah, how far down the rabbit hole do you have to, as far as how high do you have to be as far as intelligence before as far as in the intelligence community before you would know what's going on?
And are a bunch of UN reps really going to be in the loop on that stuff? Even if this is not state sponsored to begin with. It wasn't a state sponsored; it was a privately built thing with a bunch of some state actors, but not world leaders. And
this was a shield.
As far as I was concerned, that was an act of war.
Yeah, it wouldn't be any sort of act of it wouldn't be any sort of act of war because it's not against any individual state.
That's what I was about to say. It's an act of war against humanity, but not an act of war against an individual nation.
It's an act of war against a collective of scientists that all decided to team up, regardless, that aren't using their, they're not representing their actual agency. It's like they're doing it in their free time.
I'm talking about the mutants mentality as far as them doing it. They're seeing it. They're actually looking at it as we're doing this because we're at war with humanity.
I think it's more that they're doing it because humanity is waging war on them, at least a guerrilla war.
Mm-hmm. Well, the humanity and the machines as an alliance of sorts.
All right, let's get back onto the sovereignty portion. So I thought all that I read was that Emma Frost used her mind power and controlled the Russian ambassador. Other people think that it implied that she used her feminine wiles. What did you think, Chase?
Oh, that was definitely mind control. It had to have been. Yeah, it's just like her to do that. And back to what I was saying when we just very first started this whole stream, I seem to fall for women like her. And
welcome to the club.
It's not necessarily the best thing for me. I don't think Emma's the best thing for humanity or mutants, to be honest with you. Because she's absolutely deceiving them. And for Xavier to say that that's totally fine and give her a thumbs up on it, so someone on my channel, because of all of this and the way that he is acting, they said that they believe that he is a Legion in this perspective, specifically referring to the diplomacy. I don't know about all that. That's a little wild for me, but yeah, Emma is controlling people's minds, and this is all illegal. I mean, this is basically what would you call it? Idealistic terrorism, in a way. I don't know.
Yes.
It's
completely amoral. That's
Absolutely.
the thing.
It's completely amoral, and I could see in some respects feeling like an act of war, because I mean, take what happened here and that the Russians hacked the election. What Emma did here was way worse than influencing an election with a bunch of, she literally controlled minds. And so if you were going to be outraged at the latter, you got to be even more outraged at the former. And this is one of those things where we keep seeing these sinister things that the X-Men are doing that just it serves the story, and I'm engrossed, and I love what Hickman's feeding me. But at the back of my mind, I'm just like, this is wrong. What's the explanation? Please let there be this good explanation. So,
And I'll say this as well on this first page at the very bottom. I'm looking at it right now. It says, more than a sense, really, the French ambassador all but told me the Russian ambassador would be voting against us. Imagine my surprise when she abstained. So it can't be feminine wiles. Well, I mean, I guess she could be a lesbian, but I doubt that that's the case. Yeah. I definitely feel like this is all mind control, and she's an evil scumbag, like all the rest of these people are acting right now.
Well, and also Charles, to add to that, Charles says, compulsion leaves an indelible mark on the victim, Emma. It also affects the one perpetrating the act. Dominating the will of another, you see, comes with a cost. So he alludes right there that he's like, I know you use this mind control. And that's where she's like, are you accusing me of something, Charles? And he's like, no, here's a toast. I just want you to know that I know. And you're just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. My heart kind of sank when I read that, to be honest with you.
Right.
Yeah.
But when you read it from the fact that Hickman knows this guy's a villain, Hickman's writing this as a villain, it will all be explained.
Yeah.
It's good. You have to have that faith in the author, though. You have to be like, okay, you're not gonna dive off a cliff.
Imagine being one of those people who read this book and thinks that everything's okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. Whenever anybody that doesn't see the amorality of the actions taken ostensibly by heroic characters, is they need to really adjust their moral compass.
But that's the thing. Like, there's a lot of people,
fans
in the world that like look at this and they have their ideology is, hey, if you're on my team,
it's okay.
It doesn't matter. It's all about my team.
Yeah, it's not about
the X-Men are my team, so whatever they do is fine. I'll make excuses for it.
Yeah, exactly. And they need to bring back that kind of moral compass, and we need to find a way to reintroduce that through fiction and through, because X-Men is a perfect place to put something like that, because it's not about politics. It's just generally, it's a soap opera with superheroes, but there's a moral compass to it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they deviate from it, but you can see how it harms them when they deviate from it, but they never play the, holier than thou card. Avoid the holier than thou, avoid the preaching about it. But you can use X-Men to help kind of reestablish a moral compass. And I think that's one of the things that's been lost. And, we're seeing it in, as you said, in the replies, oh, it's my team, so it's okay.
Right. Yeah. And that's you hit a good thing about X-Men being the moral compass. In the past, people have often pointed like, oh, X-Men's always been about anti-racism and all this stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, but not in the way that you see. it's always been from a moral center. You know, Charles Xavier's dream was just very much that everyone's just treated equally. We're all people. And he never was like, no, my side. You know, it was just stop, just be good to one another. And he demonstrated it. And with his X-Men, he taught his X-Men, it's like, look, don't look at mutants and humans differently. Just, they're all people. Well, and that's something that in the later years has really gotten away, and it's become this mutant side versus human side ideology thing. And then even more recently has been used by certain groups to just push, you know, topical political agendas. And what I love what Hickman's doing here is he's just telling universal stories that, I mean, people behaving this way dates back, you know, hundreds, thousands of years. This is not a new thing. He's not necessarily saying, you know, Orange Man bad here. He's not trying to paint allegories of what's going on. He's just showing, hey, look, this is how villainous people think. This is how cultish people behave. He's not trying to point at, now you have to think in reality how your world is like this. He's just this world. And we can look at his world and we can walk away with our own takes. He's not telling us how to think. You know, all of us are sitting here having a nice discussion about this before, because he's allowing us freely to have our own takes without trying to guide our hand or our mind.
Well, Mako had a comment about that. You know, can you be moral when it comes to survival? If a bear attacks you, should you be moral and let her eat you or defend yourself? Defending yourself is a moral act. It's when you switch from defense to offense, and this would be like going out and killing the bear first because it might eat you later,
right?
Or wearing a meat suit out and then complaining that the bear attacks you. You know, there's a degree of common sense here. You know, defending yourself is a moral act, but this would be like poisoning all the bears because, well, one might attack me later. Or, you know, there's ways to, you know, you can definitely defend yourself in a moral way. This isn't that complicated. It's not that complex. In fact, you know, you don't have to go out and kill everything that might kill you. You don't have to trap them all. You don't have to build walls up. You don't have to do these things. You don't have to only, you know, put a 6-foot fence with a roof around the trail because the bear might eat you. None of these things are necessary.
But I don't think that walls. I don't. That's that.
Oh, okay. Well,
kind of.
Okay, I'm losing my plot here.
Yeah.
But I guess my point is, you don't have to harm. You don't have to go on the offense to defend yourself.
Yeah, it's like it's like with the situation. Like if you remember back before when Senator Kelly was taken over by Mystique, she took on the persona of Senator Kelly. That was, I think, more of a defensive action because she was, as far as the Mutant Registration Act, trying to stop the vote for the Mutant Registration. That's more of a defensive ploy. This was more of an offensive type of aggressive action.
Yes.
You know, so it's you know, are you playing offense? Or are you playing defense? Are you being aggressive or are you being, you know, preventive? So, you know, they're not really being preventive in this situation. They're actually going out and taking an aggressive stance on this. And that's the line, whether, you know, that's the line in the sand right there, whether or not that you're behaving morally or immorally.
Yes.
I just want to touch on one thing on that real quick too, is it's also, we got to remember we're reading fiction. We're reading a comic book. And while the point of your self-defense doesn't have a place in morality, it's just survival. That is 100% true. Also consider that we're not just reading stuff to be like, hey, look, here's an example of survival. We're reading a story about heroes and the hero's journey and things like that are part of the culture of comics. And so there's a certain expectation that's set there, unless you go out of your way to, tell readers, hey, look, this is not what you normally should expect out of our book. And I feel like, while it's perfectly valid point, we're reading a book about heroes, not reading a book about survivalists.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right, so there's one last thing I wanted to talk about before we move on to the last big reveal of the comic. It's when Charles is telepathically speaking with Emma Frost. He says, she kind of asked for an ambassadorship, like tongue-in-cheek, and he says, you already know that I have much bolder things in mind. Initially, I was like, is he talking about, like, are they taking over the world or something? Is that crazy? Chase, do you think he's talking about the Hellfire Club here and the plans he has for that?
Oh, man. I sure hope not. I just feel like that. I actually haven't given it much thought. I think maybe he wants to use. I think maybe he wants to use her to continue this whole. Because she's the only other psychic that's besides Legion who's maybe comes close to his power.
And it's good.
Yeah, I just assumed that maybe he meant that he wanted her to use the whole resurrection process. Actually, is the assumption I made. But I'm knowing Hickman, I'm wrong.
Well, it's what we were talking about with 11 million mutants automatically being resurrected. What kind of an impact would that have? Well, I mean, look at the snap.
Mm-hmm.
It's from the broader context of the universe as a whole. The snap brought 50% of the population back.
Yeah.
When they undid the snap, what kind of chaos did that cause? That was mutants and humans alike. So, I don't know if it would really cause as much chaos as everyone believes. But if the resurrection goes wrong, that would be astronomical in the damage that it would cause worldwide.
Yeah.
So, if the wrong people come back in the wrong bodies,
Oh, yeah. And I like that. I think he's setting that up. I think he's setting it up, and I think he's alluding to the fact that maybe someone isn't, like we've been talking about, of course, that someone's inside of Xavier's body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, could you imagine if Psylocke came back in Apocalypse's body?
Cool.
And Apocalypse came back in Psylocke's, and and if I mean, just imagine the sheer, if Jean Grey came back as Wolverine.
Yeah.
And Wolverine came back as Jean, The
possibilities are endless there.
Oh my God. It would just be like, it would be insanity.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that would be, I think that would be incredibly entertaining for quite a long time to see how those things interact. And would those people start to, it's the whole situation of nature versus nurture. Would they start to snap back to the way that original person was, over time? Would they be like Apocalypse inside of Psylocke's body? Initially Psylocke would be, Psylocke just in a different body, but within later on, due to the physiological differences and stuff like that, would she start behaving more like Apocalypse? Mm-hmm. And would Apocalypse start acting more like Psylocke over a period of time? It's an interesting dynamic there that I think could really be explored.
Absolutely.
Extensively.
This got to be him alluding to it. It's kind of been a couple references, and that's foreshadowing. And knowing him, I can see something like that occurring.
Yeah, could you imagine, Wolverine with the power of the Phoenix? I mean, it's already been alluded to in comics before.
Well, he wouldn't get the power of the Phoenix. He would get the mind of Jean Grey.
Jean Grey. I know, but eventually
the power with the power is in the body. The mind is like the spirit. But if you put a Psycho in Wolverine's body, that's one thing. Doc, what do you think he meant by you already have? I have much bolder things in mind. Is he referring to the Hellfire Club or something even bigger?
Oh, I honestly don't know, because I mean, the Hellfire Club is okay. They're an interesting political,
Well, it's going to be the monetary Like, isn't that where they're going to get their money and stuff from?
I mean, do they really need it though? They, what are they?
They have the medicines. They have the medicines and stuff. I mean,
yeah.
Well, somebody actually just brought up a good point. Let's put this up here. I think we should. This is a good theory. I hadn't really thought. Well, I had thought of it at the beginning, but now that we're further into this and we know more about Cerebro, what do you think about this one, Doc?
Oh,
wow.
Oh yeah, that's kind of the feeling that I always had, that it was there's definitely some the guy with the psychic powers gives you a thing to cure mental illness. And he's also acting very amorally and pragmatically rather than idealistically and morally. I wouldn't trust that pill if you put a gun to my head.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying the Wakandans are smart?
Well, I just think that maybe I'm just a giant skeptic and really, really, I'm that Generation X, don't trust anybody. When somebody offers you a deal too good to be true, or something that sounds too good to be true, it probably is, and there's almost always a catch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that pill's kind of like the Marvel Universe version of Amway.
Yeah.
I was about to say pyramid scheme. Yeah.
It's Amway basically. It's hey, we can make your life better. We can give you prosperity. We can do all this kind of stuff, but there's a catch, and you're going to be under somebody else's control.
Yes, and they don't know that because they don't even bother to tell them the catch, because they don't even have to tell them the catch.
Right.
All of those. I guarantee that all three of those pill, seed, whatever things.
Now remind everybody what those three things do.
Oh, well,
there was the pill to cure mental illness.
There was the one to extend lifespan.
5 years,
right.
And the world's greatest
antibiotic.
That kill that can basically.
Okay, so you've got one that gives your mind access to Cerebro. You've got the other that extends your lifespan, and the other that supposedly is the world's greatest antibiotic, but what it actually does is activates your mutant gene.
Or I think one of them gives you a mutant gene.
Yeah, one of them gives you one of them. Yeah, one of them converts one of your genes over to be mutant active.
I think the one that extends your lifespan, it's because you took it, and otherwise, they were going to kill you 5 years earlier.
Yep. So you've got the one that adds the gene to your body, one that activates the gene that supposedly makes you live longer, and the one that opens up your mind to Cerebro and
to being mind controlled.
Yeah, a 3-step process to turn everybody into mutant slaves.
Dude, that's fantastic. What a cool theory.
It just so happens they have side effects that actually work as an antibiotic that extends your life and that also cures your mental illness. Those are the side effects. The real properties are to turn everybody into mutant slaves.
Hey, if you're
I don't know about slaves, but they certainly could be
mutant drones.
Population.
Yeah. Influence. You become very suggestive to Cerebro and Xavier.
Exactly.
You might be able to go about your daily life, but whenever Cerebro or Xavier ask you for something, you pretty much always are going to say yes, because
like when Scott Summers was going to go the mother mold invasion, and he asked Scott, he said, we need this to have done. He goes, how important is it? It's important. Okay, we'll do it. It's done. And he never gave it a second thought.
Yeah.
So imagine just being like that towards any kind of suggestion from those people.
Yeah. The Generation X in me is sitting here going, I don't trust you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's move on to the last big reveal. At the end, we see the villains show up. Mr. Sinister leading a team, Exodus leading a team, and Apocalypse arriving on the island, welcomed with open arms by Professor X. And Apocalypse even figuratively bends the knee and says, "I'm a part of this, and I'll work with the collective." Pele, what did you think about this point?
It was just so eerie as my skin was crawling. It's just like, this the deal with the devil. This is it felt so much like a Mephisto type of situation. It's just at one point you're like, how far do you have to go to get how far do you have to go to get something done, and I was just thinking about how it's like you get the feeling that mutant kind is selling their soul. So very, I don't know, just very, very eerie. I was getting like almost like a chill running up my spine, the way that the way that it was drawn, the way it was presented, it's just very, it's like, something's coming to dinner type of situation.
Oh yeah.
So, Chase, what did you think with the line from Apocalypse where he's got his arm almost around Wolverine? He says, "You have finally become what I intended you to be. I could not be more proud."
Yeah, that was really disturbing to me. And you know what's interesting? And this is, out of all of these people, the person with absolutely the best instincts, the most animal instincts, the senses of an animal, the smell, the sight, the feeling. And I'm talking about animals have a different sense of intuition because they're not using some sort of quote unquote intellect. They're using an intuition that is instinctual, that we've kind of forgotten to use because our minds are so clouded with other people's perception of us. And animals don't have that. And Wolverine, he is in tune with that. He always has been, and he's been written that way.
Yeah, he's not super intelligent, but there's nobody more cunning. There's nowhere more cunning than Wolverine. He just
understands. He can look at things and he has a feeling if it's bad. And he was the one that said it. He said, "You sure about this? It's not too late to change your mind." Talking to Xavier. Yeah, it's all disturbing.
Well, the thing is, though, the difference between one of the benefits of humans do have those same instincts, but most of them are preservation.
Yeah.
And the fact is, humanity wouldn't be where it was if it wasn't risk takers. And that's the difference. That's intellect provides us the ability to take risks. That animals don't have that same ability.
Yeah.
So we take risks. Yeah, we get dead a lot. And we might kill, there's every time we think about making AI, I sit here and go, this is very risky and very stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But we're still going to do it.
We are,
even if it means the extinction of the human race. But we do stupid things in the pursuit of advancement.
Yeah,
animals don't do that, but it's the reason why we're all living in houses. And in 150,000 years, we've gone from caves to mansions with perfect climate at all times, and animals are still living in holes, the exact same holes they lived in then.
Yeah, so this one line that Apocalypse says, he says, "You have finally become what I intended you to be. I could not be more proud." And that was the one that made me shiver because look, I don't know if you've ever seen that whole, who was it? It was a book called Might is, I don't remember, but basically he's saying that you all are now supremacists.
Yeah. You guys all, yeah. When the guy that you're terrified of because he's a giant, he is mutant Hitler, congratulate you on how well you've done. Maybe it's time to reevaluate what you did.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a great point. Yeah, I was just thinking that in my head, like when Hitler's shaking your hand and saying, "Hey, right on, this is what I've been asking for the whole time." Mm-hmm. You're probably on the wrong path.
Yeah, you might want to sit back and go, like, wait, what? What the hell did I just do?
Yeah, and this is what's weird with people who, disagree with this line of thinking we talked about earlier, where like people on my channel, I'm sure Chase and maybe Wes's, said, I don't see the problem. Everything's fine here. And it's like, do you really see it's fine that the villains, the very antithesis of what's evil, are approving of the X-Men's actions? Like, it's clearly not, and it's clearly one of these things where it's like, well, the X-Men are my team and I root for them, so whatever they need to do, I will make excuses for. And someone, I forget which one of you guys said it before, if you replace mutant with white, it becomes clear. All of a sudden it's like, oh no, that would be wrong. White people can't do this, but mutants can, because they're oppressed, and so it's okay for them.
Right. Yeah. Well said.
Let's get back on topic. Doc, there were a lot of really interesting reveals on who arrived on there, and one of them that was really interesting to me, did you notice that Black Tom Cassidy arrived? Oh wait, is Doc gone? All right.
I have no idea.
Hey, did you notice Black Tom Cassidy arrived on the island?
Yeah. I didn't really. It didn't really. I didn't really think of him being any worse than the others.
No, there's a reason I'm going here. What did we learn about in Powers of 10, number 4? Who's in charge of one of the Krakoan subsystems?
Yeah. Okay. That's a good point. Okay.
I'm telling you, it's multiple timelines. In one timeline, he's like part of the defense structure, and here he's arriving on the island with the villains.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's a different timeline. It's a different.
Is it a different timeline, or is it non-linear storytelling again?
No. It's different lifetimes. I'm telling you, in one lifetime, we're seeing how humans and the machine evolution, specifically Nimrod, destroys the world. Another one, we're going to see how the Phalanx assimilates everything and destroys the world. And in this one specifically, we're seeing what happens if Professor X and the mutants go too far with this plan, how they end up destroying the world. And he has to avoid all 3 pitfalls in Moira's 10th or 11th life, whichever one thing ends on. And that's why, like, we're seeing all these inconsistencies in the story. Sometimes you're seeing Professor X walk. Sometimes you're seeing him in a wheelchair. Because I'm certain that we're seeing multiple different timelines. Did you notice that as well, Doc? I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were gone.
Oh yeah. No. I'm pretty much certain that this is a number of different timelines, and we've been seeing them all kind of jumbled and out of order. And at the end, we'll get a clearer picture. He'll straighten out the strings, I guess you would say. But. And I think a lot of them are, because these are all, if Chuck, okay, let's say Chuck, Chuck and Moira are still sitting on that bench, and this is just the download. It's all going to come in kind of jumbled, and then he's going to have to rearrange it in his brain to look at it linearly.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm thinking. And we're kind of getting it in that jumbled, here's what's happened in all of these different timelines. And they'll get straightened out. Like, he still hasn't gotten the syllabus or the table of contents yet to put it all in order.
Yep. That's what...
So
that's the way it appears.
Villains that arrived that really piqued your interest. I know you mentioned the color schemes being different for 3 of them.
For Lady Mastermind, Exodus, and Sinister. Now, all 3 of which are varying degrees of powerful telepaths. And Exodus. Now, I'm trying to remember, and I got some stuff in front of my filing cabinets. But wasn't Exodus listed as one of the dozen or so Omega level mutants in like the first issue of this?
Hold on, let me look. I got it. Pull it up.
Yeah, but so I think that it's important. I think that the fact that now Exodus is always, he's cool and all, but he's really boring because he doesn't really have much of a personality. I mean, he started off as like Magneto's kind of number 2. But they never really gave him a personality. They gave Fabian Cortez more of a personality than Exodus, even though they were both part of the Acolytes. But I think that that's important because, I mean, looking at it and, you know, Lady Mastermind, but then and the thing is, if it was just because it's telepaths, Mesmero is right next to Lady Mastermind. And he's not listed. You know, he's not, his color is, he's in the background. He's shaded in. The same way that, you know, everyone else is on the other ones. Plus, the interesting thing is with all these people coming, you notice it feels like, oh crap, are we making the right choice? Because they finally open the gates to let people in, and you realize most of the people coming in are villains.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And Exodus is one of the Omega level mutants.
He is?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought so. So now you have an Omega level mutant, a geneticist that's also a telepath, and Lady Mastermind that's a pretty strong illusionist. You know,
You can be pretty much ensured whatever you're seeing may not be real.
Yes. And or that what they're seeing may not be real.
Right.
Now the interesting thing is, though, the callback to what was it? I don't remember if it was the previous issue or Powers of X, where they explained the history between Apocalypse and his original 4 Horsemen and Krakoa.
That was the previous issue.
Yeah. And it's interesting that he's one of the guys that shows up in, you know, and shows and makes it pretty obvious that he has a familiarity with Krakoa. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think that this is going to end up with his original Horseman back. And, you know, I don't know, and I still can't remember how the hell you pronounce the other island, the other half of the island or whatever it is. Araco, yeah. That'll end up. I think that this is all going to start going really, really poorly, and when Apocalypse tries to bring his original Horseman back is when it goes wrong.
Mm-hmm. Have you guys been reading the Absolute Carnage? The connections between Donny Cates has written between Krakoa and the other side of the island. The connections between that and Null.
No,
that is, oh wow! Basically, the other side of the island is the sentient between Krakoa and the other. I can't remember the other side of it, but they're the 2 hemispheres of the original mind at creation. You know, at the dawn of creation, and the other side of the island is the birthplace of Null.
Oh,
so you've got Null. That's, you know, that's what Cates has been writing, as far as he's writing in that same name is the mother, is the birthing spawn point of Null, is the other part of Krakoa.
Oh, I need to catch up on Absolute Carnage. I have all 3 issues. I haven't even opened them up
so yet. Yeah, it's like, whoa, hold on a second, because it's pulling in what apparently they've been sending emails back and forth with each other with ideas, and he just kind of nonchalantly, and this is, you know, and it's just kind of like, well, isn't that the name of the other half of Krakoa? And it's like, and then I think that people that are reading both of them are going to be able to see, you know, how the stories are going to join together, how this is going to be merged with the greater Marvel universe.
Interesting.
So,
Hey, Doc, did you want to answer a comments question here? There's a couple of them.
Where is Moira? I'm thinking that she's probably being hidden in the tumor. How does Proteus exist? Honestly, I don't know, because we're not even sure which universe this is, because Proteus might be the one that they just brought back that I totally forgot about from Astonishing X-Men, because I literally brain wiped myself out of forgetting that Rosenberg's Astonishing X-Men happened. How does Wolverine have his adamantium? I don't know, because he shouldn't, because adamantium is a metal. Metals are inorganic. They cannot be part of DNA, and you can't grow it. So if he came out of and if he's a clone replacement thing, unless Magneto decided to put adamantium onto him, he shouldn't have it.
Yeah, while he was growing him in the pod, Magneto added the adamantium to him while he was maturing in the pod.
It could be Kevin that did it, or sorry, Proteus that did it, with his warping ability.
Maybe, but I mean, I don't know. Actually, no. Proteus Proteus's biggest weakness is metal.
Oh yeah,
that's why Colossus can kick the shit out of him.
Yeah. Okay.
He can slaughter like everyone else, but Wolverine and Colossus can beat the holy hell out of him. Is Scarlet Witch ever going to be a mutant again? I don't know. Honestly, I don't have a clue. Because they should be. That's still just pettiness from Ike and the pre-Fox purchase days of trying to separate them. I still consider everything in Axis to be BS because she's evil and literally wanted to hurt her quote unquote father. She lied to him and said, "I'm not your kid." She was literally trying to hurt Magneto at the time, so emotionally hurt him by denying that she's even his kid. Probably going to hurt, especially since it's taken a long time for Magneto to have any actual relationship with any of his kids. And with how much resentment they kind of have for the way he manipulated them early on, like way back with the early Uncanny issues. The last one is Sinister, a real mutant. I always thought he was. I thought he was a mutant that was born in the Victorian era and just had essentially a very, very, very long lifespan, but was also a geneticist and was a shapeshifter. So, and the thing is with shapeshifters, because you're constantly changing shape, you can make your, body healthy again. You don't really age. So yeah. All
right, we have another question from BM. What do you think about this one, Doc?
This timeline somehow explained characters like Joseph and other random clones in the X-Men canon. Maybe, I guess. I mean, wasn't Joseph already explained by being a clone made by the High Evolutionary? Was that it? I can't remember. I think they already explained Joseph.
Mm-hmm. All right.
A couple of years ago.
So we wanted to get to the last point and wrap this up. I know it's getting late. We started so late, guys.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
Well, here's the last one. Let's talk about this, and then we'll wrap her up. About Apocalypse's special connection with Krakoa. Ash, did you think it was weird when he got there, all of a sudden the birds started showering? It was like a special hello, and you could tell that he and Krakoa, there's a special connection there that maybe Charles and the rest of the mutants weren't expecting.
Yes, definitely. I think that's one of the things when we started this particular segment. I was kind of like going along with the comic book as we've been talking to kind of refresh my mind on the panels, and this particular panel strikes me as twofold. Number one is it represents what you just said, like Apocalypse has this connection with Krakoa, which we already know because he was there in the beginning when it was split from Arakko, I think is how you pronounce it. And then the other thing I thought of was from a writing standpoint, this seemed very symbolic to express almost like a victory thing, like a revelatory celebration of Apocalypse being like, I've won. I've, like I have accomplished my goal, in a very kind of subtle way. And you can see in that panel, I wish I could put it on screen, that in that panel, Magneto's sort of like looking around like, oh my good, like what's going on? And it's even like he's taken aback, and it's the perfect character to be taken aback because Magneto is the quintessential X-Men villain. And here's Apocalypse, the one going, it rings that way to me. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but that's what I took.
All right. So on our previous question, this is what Kemet Comics says. What do you think about this one, Doc? I know you're an X-Men guy, so I go for going to you too much.
I mean, I honestly don't know. I mean, okay, that makes sense. Apocalypse gave him the gene, and so it would make him a mutate. I guess his clones would be mutants, maybe. I think he'd be more of a mutate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we're really going to split hairs like that, it would be, the difference between Deadpool and Wolverine. One's born with it, one was given it, but they're both genetic. Like the Fantastic Four are mutates, but their kids are mutants. Well, at least Franklin is. I don't think Apocalypse was ever a good mutant. I
well,
really
he certainly said, if you read Powers of 10 #4,
he wants to.
They were like demons spilling out from Krakoa and Arakko, and he basically sealed them back up and threw the other half of the island into it, right?
Yeah, I mean that's what he did, but I think that's just pure survival, not necessarily good or bad.
He's like selfish, right?
Yeah, he's selfish.
He does what's in his interest.
Yeah, towards his own survival, and he's surviving, and it involved essentially dispatching his 4 horsemen and then sealing them up with it. That's kind of as bad as you can get. You sacrifice all 4 of your guys just to make sure you can still survive. Yeah.
I'm really curious about that story. I hope it comes up later in future X stories. Because something that would cause Apocalypse to sacrifice his beloved original 4, which we were alluded to in that one issue, that he, if he could get them back, he would drop his other horsemen in a heartbeat. There must have been something
back on the island, and we're going to find out who the originals were.
I agree with you, and I'm looking forward to getting that story because I want to know what would cause Apocalypse to do that. Like, what was so detrimental to him at that point that he would make that decision, which seems kind of selfless. It kind of seems almost heroic, but like Doc said, we know it was in his best interest.
One thing is interesting, going back to that the connection with Null, that Apocalypse is to Krakoa what Null is to Arakko.
Mm-hmm.
So, when we finally get that reconnection there, and Null finally is freed from the prison that he's in, with all this symbiote world basically that's got him buried, and Carnage gets him dug out, we'll see the final showdown between Null and Apocalypse.
Mhm.
That could be a future storyline that Marvel's going to pitch. Is what I'm thinking. But,
All right, so let's start to wrap this up. Chase, do you have any final thoughts on the weird apocalypse connection with Krakoa before we wrap it up and give our recommendations for the week?
It just goes in line with everything else that we've been seeing, that something is very off. We don't know what it is. And when we find out, I think that our jaws are going to drop and we're going to say, Jonathan Hickman, we absolutely love you. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
All right.
It's absolutely just spellbinding at this point. I'm intrigued. I'm more than intrigued. This is, in my opinion, it's the best comic writing in the last 5 years.
You're damn right.
If not decade.
You're damn right. Yeah.
Certainly the best X-Men series in well over 10 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would say this is the best X-Men series since Claremont.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't doubt that.
All right, Doc, you read them all. Is this the best X-Men series since Claremont? It's close?
I think it's close. I enjoyed Morrison's for what it was, but I think the long-term repercussions of it have been terrible. I think, honestly, you know what? I'd have to say it's the most well put together so far, and it's the most intriguing, but it's probably only the second best after, honestly, Steve Siegel and Lobdell's. I really like that era.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I'm weird.
All right, so let's give our final thoughts. Just wrap up your feelings about House of X #5, and then we're gonna wrap this up. Doc, you go first.
I really enjoy it. I mean, I have some issues. There's some things that I want to make sure that do not carry over from this, these two miniseries into the full series. I have no idea how the hell they're going to wrap this up in 3 issues. Honestly, there's so many plot points at this point. I have no clue how they're going to wrap this up in 3 more issues. And that's great. I love it. But they need to eliminate the cloning thing. I hate clones. I really do. I hate clones. They're so bad. They're so bland. But I'm still overall really enjoying this.
All right, Paley, what are your final thoughts?
I think it's a situation where, like I was talking before with the puzzle, we've got the last 3 pieces in the puzzle, and it could be, we've got a good idea of what we're looking at, but once those 3 pieces lock into place, it'll be something very different. It'll be, like, oh, I think this is a hot chick, and then all of a sudden, bam, there goes the puzzle piece, and there's a beard, or something like that. We'll see something that will just kind of startle us, and we'll get the ball rolling as far as on the adjectiveless X-Men series coming up, and all the additional series, kind of satellite series after that, because they have to give everybody a reason to go after these satellite series. It's like, well, if people give people an excuse that they'll just want to read X-Men, then if we load it too much on the front end for X-Men, then they won't want to go and get, the other X Factor and all the other series. So yeah, I think that it's going to introduce a lot of interesting questions and going forward. And I don't believe that it's everything's exactly the way we think it is right now. So there's too many pardon the pun, X factors involved to really say point blank, this is how this is going to be. But I will add that Hickman is known for throwing curveballs at the last second. So, I guess the expectation that that's going to happen, is kind of, is what leaves me leaves me with some reservations. I know it's, where this is headed. So.
Mm-hmm. All right, so the next up is Ash. I want to say, if you haven't watched Ash's reviews on House of X Powers of 10, make sure you go to his channel, subscribe, check those videos out. He has a different format and a different take on all this, and it's excellent. And you'll get some different theories and ideas of where he's coming from, and it's definitely worth the time. Ash, what are your thoughts on House of X #5 as a wrap up?
Oh, thank you for the kind plug there. It's, I don't know. I don't know what else to add other than what we talked about. I do maybe at a future discussion really want to talk about this difference between them and us, because it harkens back. It keeps echoing in my mind. I keep hearing that line where they said those mutants. And I feel like there's more going on. I love the interplay of these characters and the revelations of Apocalypse being sort of like almost in control. I think was it Doc or Chase that pointed out the colors of the villains at the end as they walked through. That blows my mind. I didn't see that the first time, which is one of the reasons I love doing these discussions, is because I know my take is not the right take. I just offer honestly what I think, and people then, if I'm wrong, can point out where I'm wrong and I can learn, but I think Sinister and Exodus, and then I forget the girl's name.
Lady Mastermind.
Yeah, I think that's so key now. And just knowing what Apocalypse is about, and just seeing him at the end there, seeing Sinister being a part of those three, we know he's key to this story because we did a whole issue on Bar Sinister. I think what's going to happen, we talk about, like, I think Doc said, I don't know how it's going to wrap up in 3 issues. I don't think this is going to wrap up in 3 issues. I think this is going to end on a massive sort of like cliffhanger that's going to serve as the launching point for the other books. I think and my guess is that is Hickman's intention, to just basically set up all these things and then go, boom, run with it. And you're going to be like, oh, I need to buy all these books to learn everything. And so I think that couldn't really be a good thing. And I'm enjoying the ride so far. And thank you for having me on to discuss this. It's been awesome.
Oh yeah, thanks for coming along. I'm sorry it started so late. That was a stupid problem to have. But so last but not least, Chase from Gateway into Comics. If you aren't subscribed to his channel, you got to get over there. He has a great channel. He does some really good reviews, especially if you like Image comics and some of those independent comics. He hits those really hard. And his channel's a little bit different than mine, but we have a lot of similarities and tastes and kind of ideas. But he has his very own content that's great as well. Gateway, Chase, what are your thoughts just for a finality of House of X #5?
Yeah, this is a great turning point, and I think that this one, and then of course House of X 2, are the two that really are setting the scene for what's to come. I put 3 of those books on my pull list, and I'll probably buy various issues of the others. I'm so excited, and I'll tell you, this has gotten me excited for Marvel Comics again. I had almost gone pure indie, Boom and Alterna, a bunch of other books as well. But dude, this this is really exciting, and I haven't been this excited about one specific comic book series in years and years. So really freaking awesome. Can't wait to see where this goes. I'm all in.
Absolutely. We're having a great time. Now it's time for the finality. Let's get some comic book recommendations before we say goodbye. Chase, what indie comics should people be reading this week?
Oh, my very favorite pick was Once and Future by Kieran Gillen. I did a review on 1 and 2 on my channel. Also, Middle West is just, dude, I love this series. It's a kid on a quest series, and a kid goes off by himself. If anyone's ever grown up with any hardships, or has had maybe some sort of abusive family member, this touches an emotional chord that I think you'll really love. It's a beautiful series, and it's already available, the first 6 issues in a trade paperback by Image Comics. It's fantastic. And then also Tinian the Fourth, he's doing Justice League with Snyder and Justice League Dark. He put out Something is Killing the Children. It's a horror book, and it is fantastic. It's on its number one.
That's been selling really well.
Yes, it is sold out. The first 3 printings are already sold out. So, yeah, check those 3 out. I'm going to do reviews on a couple more of those coming up. So, love it.
Awesome. Those are available on the channel right now. Tevye Smoke was recommending House of X, Powers of 10, Justice League, Daredevil, Amazing Spider-Man, and maybe J.J. Abrams' Spider-Man. I disagree with that assertion, and you'll see why when my review's up tomorrow. All right, Doc. What's the homework for this week?
All right. So the homework is actually it's 2 runs, and most of these you're going to find actually really cheap. From Uncanny, starting at $350, or $351 actually. You can skip $350, and all the way up to issue 370. It covers the whole period with the hunt for Xavier, some of the X clones like Joseph, and the sentient Cerebro, and some of the initial introduction of Bastion. And you're gonna need to know a little bit about Bastion, because remember, we still haven't even figured out what the Nimrod significance is yet, and Bastion is Nimrod mixed with a Master Mold. And then X-Men, the adjectiveless series, you can start at 70, but you can also start at 75 up to issue 90. Most of these books you're going to find in $2 bins. They're reasonable price back issues. You're not going to break the bank on any of them. I
think there's a few keys I think that are around the $10 to $15 mark, but that's not too bad.
I don't think so. Not in the 350 to 370 and 75 to 90.
Let me pull that back up, because I was just looking at it a minute ago.
No, I think
I got a video to record.
Yeah, I don't believe so. I think this is all going to be relatively cheap stuff, and but it's all good stuff too. Plus, you get some great Joe Mad X-Men. It's right at the tail end of his stuff, as his run, and it's, I think, Steven Siegel and Joe Kelly on X-Men, and it's really, really fun. It's not Claremont, but it's still fun. So that's
all
my
right.
recommendation.
Awesome. We got Spider Side recommending both Power Rangers book. Tsubasa True is recommending Steeple, new book from John Allison. He recommends just about anything from John Allison. Giant Days, Bad Machinery by Night, and now Steeple. We got any more recommendations? Doesn't look like it. Ash, what are you recommending this week?
Let's see. Well, this coming up week, White Knight number 3, Curse of the White Knight, that is. This book might actually be better than the first White Knight. I mean, obviously, the jury's still out, but holy cow, what a phenomenal sequel. This book is not getting the attention that it deserves, nor that I expected. This should be one of the hottest books in comics. Tribute to, kudos to Hickman for drawing attention away from it. Also, coming up this week, you get another Powers of X every week. You get one, but we're gobbling it up, and it's becoming the book that what is the book but when it was coming out, I was like, oh, poo for this stupid, and now I'm in it and I'm reading it, and I'm 100%, 180 degrees flip flop. This is the book I read first every week.
Yep.
I shouldn't even have to recommend it based on this show. I think everyone knows. I think that's what everyone's here for. But also, I encourage people to maybe, as a trial thing, try Batman Superman. It's better than you might think. I think Joshua Williamson is a strong writer. He's writing Birthright over at Image. He's been doing Flash for like 4 years solidly. And it's got a good art team on it. And if you're not happy with the current Batman and Superman, and I don't blame you, this might be your outlet to get Batman and Superman an enjoyable format.
Oh, I have to add one addition. I highly recommend flash forward, Scotty Lobdell, Brett Booth, and it's kind of fixing a lot of the damage done to Wally during Heroes in Crisis.
All right.
Go pick it up.
Sergeant Bats is recommending Batman TMNT, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and Go-Go Power Rangers. Also, Sergeant Bats is a YouTuber himself. He has a great channel. And if you want to hear someone vent on EVS and Cyberfrog, he has an interesting video available right now. All right. Fierce Crimson Speedster, a.k.a. Edward, recommends Zdarsky's Daredevil and Swordmaster #1. A Sildog is recommending DC Kickoff Bendis and King. I'll go with that. We got them all. All right, I think we do. Pele, what are your recommendations? What are you recommending from the shop?
Oh, House of X #6. You gotta get Hawks and Pox. You've got to get the new Powers of X #5 is going to be coming out, and it's going to be a barn burner. The previous issue, House of X #5, if you can find it, might be kind of expensive. We definitely keep our comics for at least a week or two if we can keep them at cover price. But a lot of comic shops are not quite so generous, and if you don't have it on your pull list, you may end up paying a few extra dollars. I don't think it's a bad investment though, because these aren't they're high print runs, but it's not ridiculously high print runs. So it's nothing compared to back in the old days. So I don't think it's a bad idea, even if you had to pay a couple extra dollars. Because these are going to be very, very important books going forward. It's kind of like these are going to be the blueprints for, the X-Men going forward, probably for the next 5 to 10 years. So they're going to be valuable, and they're going to be coveted. I've seen a lot of excitement for the variant covers, especially like the connecting variants. The 2 connecting variants for issue 4 were like so crazy as far as people going out and wanting to get them. Both of them as a set now are going for like $40 to $50, and but it's not a huge amount of variants. It's just really, really good variants. That's what I like. I like to see, in a special series like this, 4 or 5 variants on a book, as far as for the general variants, and that's not bad. When it got up into 20 and 30 variants, that's when it's stupid. But I think that they've got a pretty good number of them now. As far as what I was talking about before, my personal recommendation, okay, the house recommendation, I guess you could say, is Powers of X5 coming up and House of X5. But pick up Absolute Carnage, because a lot of stuff that Cates is dishing out right now is going to connect with what Hickman's doing now too. So they're communicating, obviously, with the connections with Krakoa and Arakko. So, you're going to see all this stuff going forward in the future, spinning out even into the Cosmic series. So, it's not a bad idea to get Absolute Carnage and maybe some of the tie-ins there. The ones that Kate's involved with, not the other Carnage tie-ins, but the ones that Kate's directly involved with, probably a really good pickup as well. So, look to see who's writing the books and get what Hickman and Cates is doing, and I think that you'll be in good shape going into the future.
All right, Dominic Powell's recommend both Power Rangers books, Michael Turner's Fathom, Arrow, Flash, Justice League, Flash Forward, and Black Hammer. He really likes that Flash character. All right, let's get to my comic book recommendations. If you're having trouble with, or your mind's too blown up when you get done reading House of X Powers of 10, go read Absolute Carnage. It's full speed ahead. There's not a whole lot of thinking involved. It's just action, horror action, and it's a lot of fun. My indie pick of the week, and what I thought was the second best comic book all week, is Blade Runner 2019 issue 3. It's excellent. If you like Blade Runner, if you like science fiction, I believe that you will think that is a great series. And my last recommendation is going to be the Inferior 5. If you like that comic from the 90s and earlier, it feels like a comic out of the wrong time period. It doesn't feel like a modern day comic. It's a 90s comic. It's a lot of fun. And I think you'll probably enjoy it. Right? That should wrap us up. It's time to say goodbye. Chase, where can people follow you?
So I am a Gateway into Comics on YouTube, and I'm on Twitter as you can just type in Gateway into Comics. I'll be there. Yep.
All right, Ash, where can people find you?
You can find me on Ash on Comics, and just want to piggyback there off of Gateway. He's been one of my favorite YouTubers for a while, alongside Thinking Critical. What his channel is really great at, in my opinion, is his understanding of writing, and he really delves into how the stories make you feel and why they impact you. And he's just got a really eloquent presentation, and I just encourage you to try his channel out. So you can follow me on Ash on Comics, Twitter, Ash1138. And if you find me a little contentious on Twitter, I apologize. It's kind of my outlet, and I try to just be all about the comics on the channel. In my most recent post, I just posted it this morning, is the new Spider-Man, and I feel like it'll probably have a very different view from Wes's. So if you want the wrong opinion, come check, I guess, maybe my channel out to see it. I have an interesting take, I think some people will find.
Well, there you go. Make sure that you watch his Abrams Family Spider-Man review after you watch mine, because you want the good stuff first.
You're right. Save
All right, Doc. Where can people find you?
You can just find me on Twitter at ScienceJesus. I will probably be talking about X-Men.
Yep. If you can look up Doc and you can get him talking about X-Men, that'll keep him from getting banned from other writers off of their Twitter and stuff. So really, you'd be doing everyone a favor if you keep him preoccupied on X-Men, which is his first and truest love. Correct, sir?
Damn right.
All right, Paley. Where can everybody follow you?
You can find me at just_Pele on Twitter and the Instagrams. Instagrams where I talk about, new acquisitions for the shop and my personal collection. Just interesting comic covers and stuff things that I find interesting. Little tidbits of little comic lore, and just what things that I find, covers I find attractive and stuff. And we talk a little bit about different story arcs. Twitter tends to be a little more political. I am going to speak my mind on there, but we do talk about comics and talk about collectibles of various types too. So just come on and join me, and we can have a good old time.
Awesome. Of course, you can find me right here on Thinking Critical, and you can also find me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. Thank you all so much for joining us. Salamat Po, and I'm out.
Later, y'all.
We dancing.
Have a good day, everyone.
Got the feeling.